Hi, Support Fibro friends. We're excited to highlight community leaders and educators from around the world. Today, we welcome our very special guest, Lynn. She is the founder and group facilitator of the Pioneer Valley Lupus Support Group. Welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. It's nice to finally meet you in person, sort of, just virtually, I guess. I've been following up on some of your progress with your work, and congratulations. I mean, I'm just honored to be considered a fibro friend.
These are our Support Fibro friends and all the community leaders. I know we were going to connect potentially in Washington, D.C. or one of our trips out to Massachusetts. So, I mean, this is progress forward of doing it virtual, but I can't wait to meet you in person.
I agree.
Well, I'm so glad we had a chance to connect. I know we connected in Facebook, and I follow your page and all the work that you do. But let's kick this off by learning a little bit about you. I'd love to have our Support Fibro friends get to know you better. So please let us know a little bit about your health journey.
Okay, yes, very well. I've been living with systemic lupus, which is the most common type of lupus. And although I got my diagnosis in March of 2011, I feel like I've been living with it much longer than that. And I believe my symptoms began as long ago as the age of 10, because I started getting a lot of migraine headaches, and I suffer from fatigue a lot. To this day, I suffer from fatigue. It's always been such a burden for the longest time. And along with the headaches came an aura pattern, which is the flickering light pattern you get before your eyes. Usually it starts with a little geometric pattern, and it's flickering, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it just expands outward. And occasionally, and to this day it still happens, this aura pattern, it's like a line of flickering light before my eyes, and I can't see anything else. And when I close my eyes, it's still there. So what I have to do to remedy the situation is take some Tylenol and go to sleep. And usually that helps. But when I started getting these migraines when I was very young, I would not only have the room spinning and I'd kind of be off balance, but I would be vomiting from it because I'd get a lot of nausea. And that was just such a huge burden on my life, getting through school. I ended up missing a lot of school because of it. And then as I got a little bit older in my teen years, not only did the migraines continue, but I started getting infections in the chest. And I had to go to the hospital often, and the doctors, I'm not really sure what kind of blood work they did, because in those days they didn't have the notes that they give you after the visit, like we have here, and they don't have the online patient portals that you can check into and see what your blood results were, because I would always get the same response from the doctors. It must be something hormonal, and you don't have mono. They always said the same thing. It's not mono, and from what I understand, you get that through kissing. I don't know if it's any other way, maybe, but, I wasn't with anybody. And like I've said earlier, I've always been an introvert and not unfriendly. No, I've always been very friendly with people and helping them out and so forth, but just kind of kept to myself. And I've always been known as the class artist. I always did the artwork for the class, for special events and everything. But I couldn't concentrate in classes because of the headaches I kept getting and this extreme fatigue. I couldn't get rid of the fatigue, and I would try everything I could to get rid of it. I would try exercising. I was on the track team my first year, and that didn't help. Didn't help at all. I was just really slow. It was like, can't get the lead out. I can't jog. I can't do the long distance running like I really wanted to. And I even tried cross country for exercise because my brother was in that, and I tried it too, and it didn't work. I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the energy. So again, through high school, I went a few times to the ER for upper respiratory tract infections. I kept getting infections in the chest. So it seemed like everywhere above the chest, I was having problems. The legs, no, my legs have always been pretty strong and whatnot. But anyways, by the time I moved to Boston, I was in my 20s, and I still did get the headaches. They were still there. They were still pretty predominant. And I didn't know what to do because I'd been to the doctors and I had blood labs done, and they never said anything at all about what to do for the headaches. I didn't get any x-rays or MRIs or anything like that. I just tried to sleep it off. So the sleep and the medication worked, but I had a part-time job and I was going to school, and I can't always just sleep when I want to because I have to make money and I have to do my schoolwork. So that wasn't helping me any. And I became a silkscreen artist because I wanted to do painting, but I couldn't get into any of the classes because I had been oil painting since I was 11 years old. And you use linseed oil and you use turpentine. And I say with lupus, your environment could be a factor towards causing flares and whatnot. But you would have to already have lupus for that to be a problem. And I think I already had it, but silkscreen was much worse than the oil painting because the chemicals are much stronger, much more toxic. Xylol, Thinx, what else? Lacquer base inks. And what we had set up in the silkscreen room was this big metal, like a tub with a metal backdrop. And you had to use a hose and you spray the chemicals onto the screen. So you're spraying all these toxic vapors in the air. Even if you're using a mask, it wasn't good enough because it stayed in the air in the room you were working in. But you had to use a heavy blast of these chemicals to clean the ink out of your screen. And it was also the way to clean out the stencils from the screens as well. So I'm being exposed to these chemicals, and I did that type of screen printing for about 5 years because when I got out of art school, I had my own studio. I said, no, I can't do the chemical stuff anymore. I got to do the water-based stuff. And I did for a while. And of course, the quality is not as good, but I'm thinking about my health because even when I was having the headaches and I did have doctor's appointments, they forbade me to work around chemicals. And I ignored it. You know, when you're an artist, you want to do art. And
right, you're passionate about art. I
said, forget that. You know, I'm young, I'm strong, I can fight it. So anyways, I became an artist model for 10 years in Boston, and I was pretty strong at that. I was doing these terrific acrobatic poses, but I was still in an environment where there were the chemicals. I was being exposed to chemicals. And to make a long story short, I became a preschool teacher. I wanted to be totally chemically free. And I thought, I'm getting tired of this. I'm sick of the fatigue. I got to get out of these environments that's poisoning my health. So I became a preschool teacher, which is wonderful because the kids are so uninhibited. They will do any projects you put out before them. They're great, and they're little space cadets. But they were happy with the creative ideas we did together. And, you know, it wasn't just art. We did math and science and all that. And at times it was weird. I would be talking to a child and my words were kind of jumbled up. Wasn't making any sense. And I remember one time a teacher said, look, so-and-so is doing something over there and he doesn't belong over there. And then I went over there and I was trying to say something to him and I wasn't making any sense. I could hear what I was saying. I wasn't making any sense. And then I repeated it and I said the same jumbled up thing. Didn't make any sense. And that was a little bit scary for me. But then I just wrote it off. And then another time I had to go to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well. And he said that there was an infection because my white cell count was off. And in most cases, you would want to know what it is. And I don't know, I just really did not care for myself and I didn't care to ask. So I didn't. And then towards the end of my preschool teaching, I started getting very depressed. I actually ended up getting depressed, diagnosed with clinical depression. And the following year, I was getting worse and I was getting the nausea and the headaches and the flickering light was coming back again. And I'm just getting worse. I don't know what to do here. And you know, they say with depression, you lose interest in everything that you like. And I was losing interest in that, but I fought with every ounce of energy I had to make sure that those children had something to do with themselves, to keep them busy. I gave them my all, and I was running out of steam, and I would be crying a lot. And finally, I came to my breaking point one day. It was 6, I would work till 6 p.m., usually 8 to 6 p.m. And those are long hours to be with children. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's 2 kids left and I feel like I have to throw up. And then the father came, finally took the kids with him. And when I left, I was working through Tufts New England Medical Center in the child care center there. And I stopped in 3 different bathrooms on the way to the subway to get home. And I just kept vomiting. And it's a yellow vial. It's nothing real, but there was just something wrong with my stomach. I just kept getting these funny reflexes. I had to throw up. And then I went home and I laid down and I had a pan next to me and I had to call my coworkers. I can't go in tomorrow. I just can't do it. And then I had trouble sitting up. If I sat up, I would vomit, and it's really scary. So then I went to sleep. Right. The next morning I got up and I was strong enough to walk over to Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital to the ER. And when it was my turn to go in and talk to the nurse, I just burst into tears. I was crying. I said, I have no support system from anybody. Nobody knows what to do with me. And my co-teachers weren't helpful. They were, you know, I was getting stuck doing all the work. And I couldn't talk to my mom because she was so sick. She's always so sick. And all my friends that I was close to, they were married and they were living in some other state. I couldn't contact them. And I just kept crying. I said, I'm all done. I can't do it anymore. I just can't. There's nothing left for me. So she left the room and she brought in a social worker. The man looked very concerned. He started talking to me and he was asking me, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst? And I said, 10. And then he left the room and she came back and she held my hand and she said, dear, I can't let you go home like this. We're going to keep you here for a while. So they put me on a stretcher, put me in an ambulance, and drove me across the street in the ambulance and put me in the psychiatric ward, which they thought I should be there because they thought I was going to hurt myself. It must have sounded like it. And I mean, I can understand that, but I was relieved that I was going to actually get some professional help. And they ended up putting me on Topamax, which is something they normally use for people with seizures. So who knows, maybe I had some and didn't know, just different types of seizures, the kind where you're just staring, and others where you actually go into a seizure and foam with the mouth. I didn't do that, but there was that, and I ended up taking Topamax for the depression, but I was in there for 6 days, and I was witnessing some crazy things. People seemed very normal 1 minute, and then minutes later, I would hear the person screaming and yelling and swearing and leave me alone and get off me. And then I would talk to people who just had been shocked. You know how they shock people? And they were like zombies. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, don't tell me they're going to do this to me. Because I don't need
very
this.
Scary.
There's something else going on with me because that hasn't happened to me. I need therapy and I need some other kind of blood work to figure out what's going on. So anyways, when I got out of the hospital, I was home in bed for a week. I needed some real rest, you know, and I did a few things that I thought were enjoyable to help boost my spirits. And then I met my husband months later and we got married the same year we met. And I was still kind of dragging and I still had the fatigue problem. And then several years later, to make a long story short, I started getting very sick and weak all over. I thought, this isn't like me because I was going to the gym and I was strong and the fatigue would set in here and there, but I was better. And then all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. I started getting these extreme pains in my wrists. And maybe it's carpal tunnel, I'm thinking. So I felt.
Oh no, we lost some of your audio, Lynn.
Oh no. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. I think you're going in and out, but you were saying like the next progression as far as Did they ever consider your migraines, or when did you get diagnosed with lupus?
I got diagnosed in March of 2011. And,
Okay, so it took a long time then. So they kind of like
did. But several months before I got the diagnosis, we were up in Maine, and I'll try to make this short. My brother was with us for the weekend, and I always put on a lot of sunscreen when I went outside. And my skin was always sensitive to the touch in the sun. And I had my hair up, and I just went underwater once, and I came back up, and then I went inside, and I was in the shower, and I was combing out my hair, and I see clumps of hair coming out. This is so scary, and I'm ready to freak, because with most women, our hair is our crown and glory. So I was really scared, but then later on, after I washed it and dried, it looked all right, and I forgot about it, you know. But then my husband and I went to DC, and we were walking around. It was bright and sunny, and not knowing that the sun is my enemy, my skin started bothering me again, and I was exhausted. We had to keep stopping and sitting down because I needed the rest. And I was an avid gardener. I skipped that part. When I came to West Springfield, I decided I wanted my own garden. We got a big, beautiful backyard. And I was gardening, and I became a member of the garden club, and then I was vice president for 4 years. And I was helping them plant bulbs around town in the hot sun, even though I had the sunscreen on. And I had the same problem. I had to keep going in every few minutes and washing off my face and reapplying the sunscreen. And it just wasn't getting any better. I thought maybe I'm allergic to the sun, or maybe it's the sunscreen, and I tried sunscreen. And then I went to the dermatologist, and she said, don't bother looking this up because it's going to confuse you. You could have mild lupus. And I said, okay. She said, don't bother looking it up. So I didn't. Forgot about it again. And then a few months later, I started getting very weak, and I'm still drinking tons and tons of water every night, and I'm flushing all the sodium out of my system, and it's making me weak, and I'm losing potassium levels. It was going down, and then the pain started in the wrists, and it felt like somebody took a baseball bat and smashed the daylights out of my wrists. And it happened at night, and then in the mornings it was a little bit better, but I still felt weak, and I was urinating a lot, and I thought maybe because I was drinking so much water, I'm thinking, I bet you now it's diabetes. I bet you I have type 2 diabetes, because lupus is known as the great imitator, because my parents both got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in their 60s, even though I was just 48 at the time. So I got a kit to test it. Nope, it's not that. But, I mean, you have to get a real test from the doctor. So I did go to the doctor, and he said, this is my primary doctor. He said, you have a lot of things going on here. You have a virus, and I believe you have carpal tunnel syndrome, like I suspected. And then he just gave me some antibiotics to help. And I wasn't getting any better still. And I was getting nauseous, and the headaches were there. And I said, no, this is not right. So finally, at the end of February of 2011, my husband took me to the ER. They did all the blood work on me. And my white cell count was 1. And she said that I don't have severe dehydration. I have severe dry mouth. And that's a common symptom for autoimmune disease. And I wasn't thinking autoimmune, and I hadn't heard of it. The only time I heard of autoimmune is when I heard about AIDS. So anyways, they brought me upstairs. I had to wear a mask. Everybody had to wear a mask that came in the room because of my white cell count being at 1. Anybody could make me sick. And they put me up on the oncology floor. And I asked, how come I'm here? Well, it's the oncology/medical floor, they said, because we have more beds here for you. And they're running a series of tests on me to see what it is and what it isn't. I had a CAT scan done. I had a chest x-ray done, and I had an echocardiogram done. And while they're doing these tests, right before they took me in for the test, I was vomiting. I was getting worse. And then the hospitalist would come in and say to me, okay, it's not leukemia. You don't have leukemia. And then he would come in and tell me something else that it's not. And then when the nephrologist came in with the gastroenterologist, I believe it was, they're talking to me, and I can't breathe, and I said to him, why can't I breathe? And he said, I don't know, I'll look into that for you. And I had to have another chest x-ray, and they found fluid around the lungs. I had, come on, the word just slipped my head. Something-itis, come on, with the lungs. I talk about it all the time, but anyways.
Well, if you think of the word, let us know.
Pleuritis.
Okay, pleuritis.
That's what it was. They confirmed that it was pleuritis. And I'm getting worse. I'm laying in the bed. I'm in agony. I'm in so much pain, and I have to have a commode next to the bed. I had to have a nurse come and assist me to the commode, which is inches away from the bed, so I could go to the bathroom. It was like that for several days. Finally, they blasted me with a heavy dose of steroids, 125 milligrams. The pain went away. I was swollen everywhere from head to toe. Did I have the moon face? 125 milligrams. And I was able to slowly shuffle over to the bathroom on my own. I didn't need assistance. And I was smiling. But the problem is I couldn't eat. I still had no appetite. They would bring up food for me. And when I was starting to get better with the steroids, I still had no taste, no palate. So I had to have my husband finish my food. And this is crazy. I said, I can't breathe. So it was agonizing when they had to sit me up so I could go to the bathroom. Then the opposite happened. I had to stay sitting up. I couldn't lay down because I'd be this excruciating pain. So they forced me to stay. Well, they didn't have to force me. I had to stay sitting up, but I'd fall asleep with my head down in the chair. And then the surgeon came along. He had to remove a lymph node from my neck. And he took some bone marrow to see if it was cancer. So anyways, right before my discharge, they decided that it was definitely lupus.
Okay.
So I said, it's lupus. And this was March of 2011.
So that's when they confirmed it through all of that ER visit.
Yeah, because they ran the certain blood panel for lupus. And I don't think they ever did that before, back in the 70s or the 80s. I don't know what they were doing. Like I said, they just kept telling me it's not mono, the exhaustion. So
yeah, I'm not sure of the test back then, because when I was getting diagnosed in the 90s, I'm not even sure, but I'm sure it was a little bit more advanced. But they said they ruled everything out, but I don't even remember, because the records were just written like we didn't have the same systems.
Right. And there's no definitive test for lupus. And anyways, when I got out of the hospital, I won't say who, but certain people, I was saying, well, they said it's not cancer, it's lupus. And I said, oh, thank God it's lupus and not cancer. I'm thinking, what do you mean? Lupus is still a serious disease. You have to keep it under control because it will take your life. So I tried to educate them on what lupus is, but even before that, I went to my first visit with my very first rheumatologist. And one of my questions was, how long is this going to last? Because, I'm a new person at this. He said, oh, you are new at this, aren't you? And I said, yes. I've never heard of lupus before because the hospitalist mentioned it to me. You've either got a virus or lupus. I said, what's lupus? And I was so out of it. He explained it to me in one sentence, and all I heard was autoimmune.
So the ER didn't send you with more information or tell you, like, they just said you have lupus, bye-bye type of thing?
Well, pretty much, yeah, because I was going to go see the rheumatologist, and evidently he's supposed to be the one quarterbacking my health. And I guess they were expecting him to explain everything to me, and he sort of did. Yeah, he kind of did. And he was examining me, helping, what they usually do, feeling the hands and doing all the motions and whatnot. And I was bad at first, but it didn't quite sink in what it is. I'm thinking, I'm kind of in denial. I don't believe I have an autoimmune disease because that sounds way too serious for me because, I'm pretty strong in spite of the fact that I had the fatigue issue and the headaches. I'm pretty strong, and not to toot my horn, but I was always stronger physically than my friends. And whenever we go hiking, there was this one friend, I'd have to carry her pack along with mine. I was so strong. So I don't think it's autoimmune. And then after a few more visits with my first rheumatologist, he was he was saying about my blood work, well, you probably won't like the results. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, your lupus is still pretty active. And then he said something more in detail, I can't remember. But on my way home, my husband was driving me because he started going with me to the visits. I burst into tears and I realized I have something wrong with me. I'm feeling it. And my health just kept spiraling downward. And now they put me on this immunosuppressant drug, 2 different kinds of immunosuppressant drugs. He let me pick out 2 from a list. He said, look them up on the internet and then decide which 2 you want. Just like that. And I'm thinking, really? So I picked Plaquenil and Cellcept. And I did have some problems with the Cellcept because it reduces white cell production. Because at times I would get very weak from it and I couldn't get out of bed, so I would have to go off it. And long story short, I ended up going to another rheumatologist whom I like very much. I've had him ever since, and he's very,
that's good.
very professional, and they stay on top of my condition.
And guided you probably better through that.
Yes.
Did you find that some of the information, I know with 2011, but did you find that the information was adequate for you, or were there things that you were looking for that you needed in this diagnosis?
It seemed to me, I started doing my research on what lupus is, and I was reading about what other patients were experiencing. I thought, oh, I'm doing that too. That's happening to me. So I'm trying to figure out what to do from here. And I was reading some of the articles from Lupus Foundation of America, and what I'm experiencing is normal with lupus, but I'm going to have to try to figure out a way to work around it so I can live a more ordinary life, more functional life. Mm-hmm. Because I can't lift my legs to go up the stairs, and I'm in pain in the back, and I'm taking these 2 drugs, and I was told it's going to take several months before your system actually adjusts to it. Because my husband and I went with his parents up to Canada a few months after I got discharged. I didn't understand this business about the sun causing internal flares. I knew it could give me rashes, because that was another thing I forgot to mention. I had rashes growing up. I would get those easily too, along with the sensitive skin. And anyways, we're up there, and I'm wearing my wide brim hat and the short sleeves and the pants, and I'm covered with sunscreen. So we were out in the sun sometimes, walking around up in Quebec, and some days it was just bright, but not sunny, and that's just as bad. So I didn't realize it. So 2 days later, I start shuffling again because my ankles are swollen and in pain, and I'm starting to get a little bit nauseous, and things are kind of moving like this. And, you know, what's happening here? So it turned out this was right before we were coming back home. We went to Cap de Madeleine, a shrine, on the way back home from Canada, and I could hardly walk. And the wheelchair was meant for my mother-in-law, but I had to be the one using it. I couldn't walk. It was that bad, and I don't understand why. So she pushed me around in a wheelchair. She was stronger than me.
Well, it sounds like there's been a lot of, in this whole journey, it's like trying to find the information, like what is going on and all of this information. So I know with the support group, this ties into that. So could you also talk about then your inspiration for starting a support group? I mean, we've all heard now this health journey and looking for information, jumping around, and the...
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I was actually getting better after the first year, and I'm getting stronger, and I was looking for a support group, and there's nothing in our area. We're in Western Massachusetts, and I don't see anything. The nearest one is in Boston, and that's 2 hours away, a little over 2 hours, actually. And
that's a long drive to get.
It's a long drive, I know. Then there was another one in Farmington, Connecticut. That's too far away. I can't do that either. And I said, you know what? After all this research I've done, seeing how other lupus patients have been affected, they're much worse off than me. They have had their organs affected. Some of them have lupus nephritis. They need transplants, some of them. they have digestion problems. I don't have that problem. And they have problems with the lungs. I don't have that. I can walk again. I can work out at the gym. As soon as I'm strong enough, and I'm sure that I'm well enough, I'm going to start a support group. But I need to expedite my own health right now somehow. And I'll be very careful with what I eat and the exercising. And I stuck to a regimen for a while, and I did get better. I finally went into remission. So 2015, I started the support group.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I thought I was trying to get it going at a hospital. I don't know what the laws are like in all the other states, but in Massachusetts, they would not allow me to post or advertise our support group in the hospital because they considered it solicitation. And also they said they want it to be run by a professional person. I said, okay, I understand that. And they want you to have a board of directors, and you basically had to be nonprofit. I said, okay, well, they have their rules. And maybe it's better that way because sometimes the hospitals will want to be in charge of everything you do. So anyways,
there is liability, but for community leaders like yourself who want to give back as patients, you know, how do we get through that and start it and be supportive? So, I mean, I'm glad you persevered through that and have now continued.
Yes. Well, what I ended up doing was I had to contact all the churches in the area and all the colleges and ask them if they would be willing to advertise our support group. And they said, yes, absolutely. And some of them were very excited about hearing it, you know, because they said, well, there's so many people of color on our campus, because I had explained a little bit about lupus. And this is perfect for us because we know that there are some who do have this illness, and maybe they would be interested because they're college students, you know. And even some of the churches I had advertised, and they were happy to have me and happy to know that we have a support group because there's a lot of Hispanics, and they're more familiar with lupus than the white population, it seems, because it's more prevalent among people of color. So I was glad to hear about that. And then we got a location, the public library. And I should say, this is how I came up with the name. I had contacted Westfield State University, and I asked if they would publish our information so we could get some college students to come. And I got an invitation to their health fair. I thought, oh, this is great. Oh, wonderful. Now I get to talk about lupus to the college students. I can bring more people together and maybe get a strong advocacy group going. So they ask you, what is the name of your group? And I'm thinking, oh, I don't have a name of the group yet. And I thought, you know, why not just call it the Pioneer Valley Lupus Support Group? Because we are located in the Pioneer Valley. You know, it's not women fighting lupus or anything like that, because it's open to women, men, children, anybody with lupus of any race. So the Pioneer Valley Lupus Support Group, I went with that name. So that's what I put down. And I was so happy to go and talk to people. And there were nursing students that came and asked me, what is lupus? They didn't know.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep, that happened many times. And a couple of teachers were asking me questions. Does high blood pressure cause lupus? And they were curious. And I had information on overlapping diseases. I have little booklets to give out for that. So I gave those out, and all that information I shared at the health fair I brought to our support group. And because I was new at it, I was looking for a way to have somebody kind of direct me. So I went online again, and I found Molly's Fund Fighting Lupus. And I'll be honest with you, I was drawn to it because I love the graphics. And also,
the artist here, right?
Exactly. And they have excellent blogs. I thought, you know, I'm going to contact them. And Molly's Fund was founded by Molly McCabe. I'm sure you've heard of Molly McCabe. And
I've been connecting with her in social.
Yes. And she co-founded the group with her mom, Debbie McCabe. And she is now a very strong lupus advocate. And she works with Lupus Research Alliance now. And I connected with them, and they called me and they asked me how I was doing and why I was interested in becoming support group facilitator. And I told them, and they sent me a binder with topics to talk about and a set of rules, set of guidelines to go by. And I said, this is great. And I had my own ideas too, kind of creative ideas to get people to break the ice and want to talk to each other. And
Right.
so I did that, and I've documented all this. It's in our scrapbook.
Oh, fantastic. Is that scrapbook available online?
No,
or is it a physical scrapbook?
It's a physical scrapbook.
Okay.
I'm not that big of a techie, but I mean, that's an idea. I could actually put it online. That's an idea. I could do that. And
Well, I mean, if people give permission to share and stuff like that,
right.
you have that. So when new people come, are they able to the group? I know right now everything has to be virtual. It's fairly difficult, and
Right.
we're missing some of the human contacts. But when they come to the group, you have the scrapbook with you and stuff?
Yes. I sometimes bring it because we don't always have time to look at it, but I bring it to our end of the year party and people look at it then. And sometimes during the summer months when we have fewer people, we meet in a cafe and I bring it then and I keep it updated. And also I have people sign a consent form. This is part of Molly's fun too. You sign a consent form giving permission to use their photographs publicly. And those are those are the ones that get used in the scrapbook because I bring it to the health fairs and I let people look. I show them what we do. And I bring in
That's fantastic.
I bring in educational information, articles about lupus, and
you said that you have some speakers sometimes too.
Well, this is the thing. I was trying to get speakers to come, and I have faxed so many doctors because I have called the offices. I don't know if other people have had this issue, but I've called the offices, and the secretary says, "Oh, you have to call the fax number and send a fax and tell the doctor what it is you want." And I've sent so many faxes out, and I never got a response until recently in January. I was so thrilled. There's a doctor that goes to the she practices out of the Arthritis Treatment Center where I go, and she's a wonderful lady, an Indian doctor, and she would love to help us out. And she asked me, ask your support group members what it is they would like to talk about, and we'll try to put something together. So I did that, and we were going to do something in the spring, but because of the situation at hand, it's going to have to happen later, maybe later this year. And
okay, well, if you need other suggestions, our support fiber friends are always here to contribute. I mean, we've had recent guests of Michelle, and I mean, you're connected with Estella and Juana from Looms for Lupus, so we're all here. That's the part of it, is like community leaders chipping in to support each other. And, I'm sure there's speakers that want to contribute to this, and my network at like the Walls Protocol, like I am happy to share and ask them if anyone, even virtually or in person, because I know the Massachusetts area, there's got to be people there. So we definitely, that's why we highlight other community leaders and get people involved.
Yes. Are you
Well,
still there?
Right, so you're going to do some advocacy work.
So far the advocacy work I've done is go to Washington D.C. That was my first trip last year.
Okay, so you went last year. Okay.
I went last year for my first time. Yeah, and it was empowering. I really enjoyed it, and I had been to DC before to talk to senators about other things, but this was different. This was for lupus. This was something for me and for other people.
Personal, it's right there.
Personal, you're right, exactly. And I was pretty excited about going and meeting the congressman. It turns out my husband's family knew them because they grew up in the same neighborhood. And it turned out that his secretary, his chief of staff secretary, has lupus. And yeah, and I didn't know that. I mean, I was surprised when she came out and we sat down, and I was the only one from Western Mass that went, but there were other people in the Boston area that went. But anyways, I spoke with her, and she said, "Oh, I know all these things because I have lupus." and she was wearing a knitted cap, and I said, oh, okay, so you understand. And I just had to tell her what the 4 asks were. And,
Right.
yeah, and this year I spoke with her again over the phone because I was going to go this year, and we kind of connected in a more personal level, which is great because she's from the Western Mass area, and she said, anytime I'm out there, I'll give you a call, and so that would be great.
Well, and
So,
we've noticed that some people get involved with the different events, because I know when we went the first time for fibromyalgia, some of the staffers were like, let us know if you're having an event, you can get involved, like the reps, or bring in the senators, or just at least virtually mention it on social media. So I think all of us felt empowered, and we're recruiting more people. So it's nice to see that you went previously and they did the virtual one. How did you feel with doing it virtually compared to in person?
well, I didn't care
It's
for it.
different.
It's a different experience, and I appreciate all the hard work that they put into putting it together. I mean, it was the only way they could. But last year, I did put together a nice package, a creative package for the senator and the congressman to see what our support group was doing, and I included pictures and information on our support group and everything. And I was hoping to do that again this year because I had done something new that I wanted to show them. But it was interesting, and it's I'm just impressed at the way they set it up, where you virtually go into each of the exhibits. When you go into the exhibit hall, you click on an insurance company, and it tells you about it. And you click on the video, you hear about it, and if you want to save the file virtually, you click on the suitcase. And that's kind of cool. That was a cool thing to do. And you get to look at a list of all the people that are there. And if you want to chat with them, you can. And I asked a question to a couple of the people at the exhibition tables. I don't remember what they were. And they got back to me by chat. And that worked out nicely. And it was interesting the way they had the panelists speak, each from the comforts of their own home. And that worked out well, I thought. It was a different experience.
Well, nothing beats the in-person empowerment of walking around Capitol Hill. I know it's a long day, so we had to get mentally prepared for all and trying to find our way. But there's just something about, with everyone there for our first time. We didn't feel at first going in what to expect. We didn't know that our voices could be heard like that. But for people like yourselves, you represent a community and your support group, and you're sharing with them the stories that you hear. So it's important that they hear from you.
Exactly. And last year when I went, I was actually very sick. I was flaring very badly. It didn't seem like I was walking slowly because we had to walk from one building to the other, and I actually vomited at one point at night. And, I didn't get a chance to tell you, another inspiration for me starting the support group was my mom. I seriously believe she had lupus because she was sick her whole life. She came from England, and she said she was always sick. She was always tired, always fatigued. And she was in and out of the hospital when I was a little girl. And that was very scary for me. And even growing up, and when I went to Boston, I'd go home and visit, and I'd have to take her to her appointments. And she would have rashes, and she had kidney problems. And she just kept getting worse. And she ended up on dialysis the last year of her life. And she had these terrible wounds on her arm and also on her forehead, bigger patches with the wounds. And the stuff I saw on the internet, the pictures of discoid lupus, that's exactly what she looked like. And when I was...
But no one ever gave her that information.
Never. And there was never any mention of lupus. Had I known about that, I would have made sure she got to the right rheumatologist, got the right medication, and she could have led a much better quality life rather than crying all the time and screaming in pain. And it was just horrible to witness.
Well, I can understand your inspiration behind helping others, because you don't want other families to go through that process of trying to jump around and just figure out the information. It's much easier to just, hear and be the support system and give people resources up front rather than this whole game. It makes you doubt yourself so much in trying to figure out what's going on. And did they ever have you gotten more information about the migraines and headaches? I know next month it's Migraine Awareness Month. So
no, actually I didn't. I just wrote it off as being a part of a lupus symptom. You know, I mean, once in a while, I don't get them as frequently because I think that the medications I've been taking have been helpful for that. You know, especially the Plaquenil, that's like a big plus. That's been a real lifesaver for me. I know for some people it didn't work at all, but it's been a lifesaver for me. And I think it's even helped with the headaches because I don't get them as often.
That's good to hear. I know with fibromyalgia and migraines and headaches, we're all connected in those. So it's trying to get more information out to people. Like, I'm excited to learn more about migraines from our other community friends. So I'm looking forward to the events in June as well. So I think we'll be sharing all that content, but it is Lupus Awareness Month. So we wanted to hear from other lupus advocates, because I know with lupus and fibromyalgia, you can be diagnosed with both, or you wait a while to get a diagnosis. So it's very confusing for all of us. And as community leaders, being in it together is important.
And my partner, I'm actually the partner now of Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus. It used to be Molly's Fun Fighting Lupus. It's now Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus. And Kaleidoscope is what you would describe as a group of butterflies. A lot of butterflies together is called a kaleidoscope. And that's how they came up with that name. But they have excellent blogs, and they've been working with me. They send me to DC, and they're always willing to help in any way they can. And I'm grateful to them for doing that.
That's fantastic. I'm glad that they've kept on being a resource for the community as well. I know we're getting close to closing out the hour, but I wanted to know, where can our Support Fibro friends connect with you? I'm going to post a link in the chat. Could you tell not only where they connect with you, but how often are you having your meetups? And I know it's different now, but how often do you meet, kind of things to look forward to?
We meet every third Saturday of every month. Right now it's virtually, from 11 a.m. until about 12 or 12:15, depending on how many people are there and how much people have to talk about. And I always, at the meetings, the in-person meetings, I always provide articles on medications and overlapping diseases and lupus itself. And I always have those booklets with me because lupus patients, some of them, they have overlapping diseases. And I just want to keep on thriving and not just surviving. And I want everybody else to do the same.
Well, I mean, we all understand each other with, even if we're diagnosed with something different, these symptoms and we just understand each other in our journeys and our health journeys of hopping around. So I appreciate so much of your time and joining us, and definitely want our Support Fibro friends to connect with you. So I did post the link, but I'll be sure to tag your pages in the description once we end the broadcast. So I know it's coming to the end of May for Lupus and Fibromyalgia Awareness Month here.
Yeah, but like I was saying, the best way to get in touch with me and to follow our group is through Facebook. Just go to the Pioneer Valley Lupus Support Group and it'll come up. And if people want to post anything about articles or whatever, something about their journey, it's the way it's set up is it comes to me first and I approve of it, and then I just post it for them.
Okay. Do you have a separate private group for just your members as well?
No, actually I don't.
Okay. So you've been doing a lot of stuff in person.
Right. And I do make our announcements for the support group on our Lupus support group page, because there are a lot of them. There are some that come to our group that are local, and there are a lot of people that are not local that also read the page, read the articles and other things posted.
Well, we're always sharing your content because people need all these resources and people to go to that are great advocates. So we'll be connecting them with you for sure. Thank you so much for your time, and Support Fibro friends, we'll be checking in with more information on new programs for our organization soon. So thank you, Lynn. We're happy to have you. Bye.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Okay, let me